So, hello everyone, and welcome to our Bigger, Better, Stronger Me event. So we are Tyne Coast College, and this is our careers and wellbeing event. So I am delighted to be joined by the Mental Health Ambassador for Young People, Dr. Alex George. I'm sure you will all kind of know who he is. But it would be fantastic, Alex, if you could give us a little bit of background about kind of who you are, how you ended up in that role, and a little bit more.
Thank you so much. And hello to everyone that's watching today and having to Tyne Coast College. I hope that our chat's going to be helpful. My name's Alex George. I'm an A&E doctor actually by trade. I work in a hospital in South England, so it's kind of quite a busy, what we call a district general hospital. So we see lots of different things, from accidents and injuries to illness, infections. Mental health, of course, is a big part of our job as A&E doctors. You might know me from being on the show on Love Island a few years ago. I came off that show, and really my focus since then has been around well-being and mental health, and also just trying to give tips and advice to young people about how to look after their health and happiness. Obviously, in the last year, I've been working throughout the pandemic. It's been an incredibly busy time for everyone on the front line. It's been very difficult and challenging, I think, for young people, whether you're at school, college, apprentice, university, whatever you're doing. I think it's been a huge challenge. I have, been working around mental health for a few years, but the focus really came to a head, I think, with the pandemic. And of course, my brother sadly passed away due to suicide in the summer. So I have been, since then, campaigning about mental health and the importance of making sure we're supporting young people. We're destigmatizing mental health. And actually, when people reach out, that there is support there available for them. So I'm going to be doing quite a bit of work in my role as Youth Mental Health Ambassador. It came about because I started a campaign on social media, which you guys, all of you, helped me kind of build momentum and really bang on that door of number 10. I never really expected, obviously, how far it would have got me. And now I'm working really behind the scenes, offline a lot, really, on many projects about mental health and particularly around young people. So we're making progress. Rome wasn't built in a day. It does take time, but we will get there. But I'm glad to be here today. Thank you to everyone that's watching. I'm looking forward to answering a few questions, Jess, and I understand that students as well joining us very shortly. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. I think that has obviously kind of given us an overview, but like I said, I do have some questions to run through with you as well, just so we can dig a little bit deeper into the role that you are currently doing, obviously your role as a doctor. Also, obviously we know that you are a little bit of an entrepreneur now as well with your work with Prescribed. So we're going to be having a look into that too. So if we kind of start off then, so firstly, we'll start off with the pandemic. Obviously that's the big thing, and I don't want to focus too much on COVID. I know everyone will be sick of hearing about it by now. But how have you and your colleagues found the working throughout the pandemic, working within A&E? How has it been? Obviously it's been a long 12 months.
Yeah, it's been pretty tough. I mean, we've had to adapt massively to changing scenario. We're used to working in a certain way in A&E and having minors for small illnesses, majors for being patients that are sicker, and our resuscitation department for the sickest patients. And we kind of stream patients and put them in different areas depending on what they presented with and what they come in with. Obviously, during the pandemic, we've had an added problem of having to actually think about, well, we've got patients who have got an infectious condition potentially with COVID. How do we manage patient flow? Where do we put patients? Because you want to keep people separate who might have come in with an ankle injury, for example, separate from someone who presents with potential COVID. So it was a real headache in that sense to start with, and it took us time actually to adapt. But we did so, I think, pretty well. It was really the first wave was really hard. Really difficult, very, very busy in the hospital I was in. But I'm really proud to be part of the NHS. I think the way the NHS responded, and I think the people that worked on the front line and those who supported those on the front line has been unbelievable. And I'm really very glad to say we're kind of heading on the way out now. I'd say things are much better. The battle isn't over. I mean, we've all got to be careful, but certainly the vaccine is making a big difference.
Absolutely. Obviously, you mentioned there about being kind of feeling proud to work within the NHS. And I feel like everyone feels so proud of our NHS. I know that I do. Obviously, I know that's been kind of a really big theme throughout the pandemic, is kind of support for our NHS workers and feeling proud of the health service that we have. And obviously, you play your kind of role within that. So the focus of this kind of Q&A and of this session and of the event really is thinking about well-being. So in a role that is so intense, how do you manage your own mental health?
I think, regardless of what career you go into, stress is a part of daily life. When you look at what stress really means, there's something, a stressor, we call it, something that's making you feel a sense of pressure, that you need to perform at a certain level, that you've got things you need to do. And that feeling we feel, you've got an exam or a work assignment, we feel stressed, right? It's that kind of, oh gosh, I'm worried about it, needs to get done. But that happens in life, whatever your role is. And being able to manage stress and being able to take care of yourself basically allows you to be not only better at your job or your work or your school, whatever you're doing, but it also allows you to do it in a way that's healthy and allows you to be happy at the same time. Of course, the pandemic is an extreme version of that, but knowing how to look after myself has been really important for me. So I've made sure that I've got outside for a walk every day, got natural light. And we know that natural light is very important for vitamin D. Vitamin D is not only good for our bones, but our mental health. We know that natural light is in itself is beneficial for our mood and how we feel. Being around green spaces, we know is good for anxiety and calming. Making sure I have a walk every day, making sure I do some exercise. We know exercise is brilliant at releasing stress, increasing blood flow to the brain, increasing endorphin production, getting out. That feeling, go for a run or a bit of exercise, whatever it might be, you let out some of that stress. And then, the other basics as well, like sleeping well. If you've got, you're having poor sleep and you're tired and you're run down, it's going to make everything worse. So I've really focused on my sleep during this, making sure I go to bed at the right time, get up at a regular time. I think about putting my phone down before bed, blue light and things like that, making sure that I'm not having things that's stimulating me when I should be going to sleep. And then other things about food as well. We've got to fuel our body to perform and fuel our body to recover and take care of ourselves. There's so many aspects of self-care. A lot of them should be basic. They should be simple things and doing what's intuitive to you. We talk about, you mentioned prescribed. The bath bomb company came from a place of self-care. Like, I really enjoyed chucking a bath bomb in, relaxing in the bath, putting a podcast on or some music and just unwinding. And that, for me, every time I finished a shift, especially during the pandemic, that has been a godsend to me. Just chilling out, relaxing, unwinding before I go to bed has been, mentally, it's been second to none. And that's why I did all this, because I thought, well, actually, I found a real benefit. Let's share this with other people.
Absolutely. I think that's so important. And I think that's really key what you said there as well. It should be kind of simple things and simple steps that we can all take. And sometimes it is about putting your phone down, maybe not sitting and scrolling through TikTok for 3 hours before you can sleep, which I'm fully
as hard as it can be.
I know, fully guilty of doing that. I fully got sucked into the world of TikTok over lockdown. But yeah, and I think it is about kind of taking those simple steps. What can we do? Putting the phone away, maybe eating a little bit better. Like you said as well, kind of just getting outside, getting out for a walk. Again, they're little simple things that we can do and incorporate into kind of daily life to make us all feel a little bit happier, which is great.
Sure.
So we've spoken there a little bit about kind of your role within A&E and your role as a doctor, and we will kind of touch on your work as a mental health ambassador as well. But many people watching will know you as Love Island, Dr. Alex from Love Island. I know that's obviously where I first kind of saw you on our screens and have continued to follow your journey since then. With Love Island, obviously it's very well known, it's a really popular show, but there have been some concerns around mental health and the programme. So it's put you kind of in the spotlight as well as it has all of the other contestants. But there have been some concerns, like I said, around kind of mental well-being and things like that with the show, obviously with the tragic suicide of Caroline Flack and other contestants as well. How do you think that kind of Love Island has, and being on Love Island, has impacted the way that you view mental health?
Well, I think you've raised some very good points, and one of the things that I think we have to think about as viewers, as well as ITV and broadcasters, is about how what we put out on air, how does that impact the people that are watching it, but also impacting the contestants as well. And I think it's very important that, for example, with Love Island, that we have to think about things like body image and what we're portraying and what we're showing is it real life. And that's why I think it's so important that ITV, that these broadcasters of all reality TV shows think about putting people on there that actually reflect society. And we're not just putting people that appear to have perfect images on there, and because that's not real life, and that's not how it is. And I think one of the good things about the year I was on Love Island is, if you look at the person who won the show, Jack Fincham, who's a friend of mine, he won't mind me saying this, but he had a very normal physique. He wasn't there with ripped torso or whatever. He was a normal bloke, and I think that was a really good thing. And I hope to see that as the years go by, that will evolve, and we'll see a much more normal group of people. Not to say the people on there that aren't normal, but much more representative group of people, I think, of general society. But I also think, as viewers, we have to remember when we're watching these shows, it isn't real life, and to try and remember that, when we are, watching it, to watch as entertainment. But no one looks perfect. I mean, take for example, when I was on the show, I had six pack and I was in shape and all this. I had to starve myself to be in that shape, and trained way too hard. I damaged my social life in terms of not doing all the things I'd usually do in terms of meeting people and stuff, and I became very isolated. Was I healthy? Absolutely not. I'm much healthier now than I was then. So it's always worth remembering that people have worked so hard to look in a certain way. That's not sustainable. I mean, I don't look like that now. I mean, I don't have a six-pack now, but does that mean I'm not healthy? I can cycle pretty far. I can go for long runs. I walk pretty far. I could do all the things I want to do. So am I healthy? I'd say pretty healthy. So, but it's very important because it does impact. And obviously, when I come off the show, it was a huge amount of focus on me and my personal life, and it took some getting used to. And I think when you talk about contestants going on the show, I think it's very important to think about who can actually cope with that. Do they have the ability, the social connections and things that will allow them, in terms of family and close support network, to allow them to go on a show and come off. So, and I'd always say that to someone, if you're looking to go on a TV show, think very carefully, like, do you want that? Because there's as many positive things, there's negative things. There's yin and yang.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something I think we all need to have a bit of perspective, I suppose, and a little bit of context when we're watching these shows. That, like you said, that's really interesting that you feel kind of healthier now than you did back then. And I'm sure
Absolutely.
you're not alone in thinking that. I imagine there'll be lots of contestants who have done very similar things before kind of going on a show like that. So I think that's something we all need to kind of remember when we're watching programs like that, and with social media and things, just kind of remembering that what we see isn't always real. We're not always seeing the full picture. And yeah,
100%. There's it was a brilliant post I saw on Instagram a few days ago, and it was like a graph, and it showed like a person's whole life, and what you see is this little bit at the top end. And like, if you look at the whole life, and like this being like the hard part of life, that being like things all glossy and nice, and you see a tiny little circle at the top, you don't see 98% of it. It's the same as things when I'm doing, people talk about when I'm doing my work in the role, people will only see the finished article of announcement or whatever that what we've done. You haven't seen the 300 odd hours that's gone into making that happen. So it's always worth, for good and bad, it's always worth remembering that you don't always see everything that someone's doing. So yeah, worth remembering.
And I think we're all guilty of that as well. I definitely am. I mean, I don't post anything negative really on social media. I feel like I try and post the most exciting bits of my life on my Instagram, and I'm not going to post those days where maybe I don't feel so great or whatever, just because I want to keep it maybe as a positive space, and I feel like we're all a little bit guilty of kind of showing off the best bits.
Everyone does it, and I think it's just being aware of it. If we're aware of that and we know that actually there's a lot of stuff we're not seeing, that helps. It's just having a different angle when you're receiving content, just having a little think of it. I do try actually and share on my channel the ups and downs, and I'm sure people would see that, and some might say it's oversharing. I don't know, but at least I do try, because I know, because of the following I have, it's important for me to reflect that. And I think in the last year you would have seen as many highs and lows, and I've been pretty honest about that on my channel.
Absolutely. And I think that, like you said, people definitely are aware of that. And I've obviously followed you kind of since Love Island, but I would say now I definitely recognize you more for the work you're doing now than you being to me
Thank
kind
you.
of Alex from Love Island. I feel like you're Dr. Alex in my head now. So I feel like that's
Thank you.
probably
Thank
kind
you.
of as a result of the stuff that I see on social media. And like you said,
Thank you.
being transparent, I suppose. So obviously we've spoken there a little bit about Love Island, and kind of being on the show and putting you in the spotlight. So how did you kind of find the transition from being on Love Island and being in the spotlight, but also returning to work as a doctor?
It was difficult at first. I'd be lying if I said it was easy. I think it was such a transition. I mean, you know, we went from 150 followers to over 1 million followers. It was a really odd, that's a very odd experience for anyone to go through. It really is unusual. And I don't come from a background of being a model in the public eye. You know, I had none of that. So, you know, a doctor's training is very focused on his medical career. So yeah, it was a huge shock. And I think going back to work took me I think it took me about 6 months to go back, 5 months to go back, and actually be comfortable to go back to work. But actually, when I went, I was really well received. The hospital was lovely. I settled in pretty quick, and since then, I think I've really enjoyed that balance. And I think the hospital keeps me grounded. It keeps me very real, and I think it keeps me focused on what really matters. And it also puts things in perspective. Sometimes I got stresses and stuff. When I go into A&E and I see the things I see, it helps me go, actually, that's not such a big deal. And what really matters is our health and our happiness, and that's what it comes down to. And that's I think why it's been so important. I think the last year for me, it's really, I think, brought my attention to the fact that what really matters in life is the health and happiness of your friends and family. Everything else is a secondary thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine kind of going from, like you said, like over 1 million followers. And I can't imagine like being in that kind of space, but then also being at work, kind of working a very professional job, also kind of a public facing job, but in a very different way. So
yeah, it's very odd. It's odd.
Yeah, I can't imagine that at all. So obviously you've just kind of shared with us there that you do have a very genuine interest for kind of looking after others. Obviously that is what your kind of profession is. But you have now taken on this role as a mental health ambassador for young people. So could you tell us a little bit more about kind of the work that you're doing with that and what that involves?
So my role really is to be an advocate, a voice for young people in decisions around policy, but also what we're doing in terms of stigma and destigmatizing mental health. I'm not there as a professor or expert in mental health. There's many advisors there who are much more much more experts or well suited to that kind of thing, advising and all that kind of stuff. My role really is to speak with the charities, young people, teachers, parents, and experts to try and work out, what needs work, what do we need to do, where are the gaps, what can we improve, should we be putting money here or there, and trying to push the government to do those things really. So, and as I say, a big part of it is the stigma. A big part of the role is actually not just about policy and all that stuff. It's actually about trying to make people feel that they can reach out when they're struggling. And I know people talk about, well, when you reach out, there's got to be some help there, when you do so. But so many people, particularly young men, and if you look at the situation with my brother, there's so many people who don't reach out. So if they feel that stigma, they feel that shame or whatever they're feeling at the time, and they're not actually asking for help, then all the help in the world and all the support is not going to be beneficial until they will do that. In my brother's case, if he'd have reached out, would we have been able to change the outcome potentially? So I think that is a big part of my job, really. And I think sometimes that's potentially not quite as seen. I think people are very focused on the funding and all that stuff, but a big part of it is actually helping young people to normalize mental well-being and health and illness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like you mentioned there's kind of this big, and it is obviously it's great when there's being kind of more funding kind of dedicated to mental health and things like that. But it's those more kind of tangible, actionable things that are actually going to make the difference. And like you said, that is kind of kind of addressing the stigma around kind of maybe having problems with mental health and things like that, and how to actually work through it.
Absolutely. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. Everything takes time. You can't just change these. We're talking about decades of, I would say, underfunding for mental health and decades of stigma, if not more than that. And it takes time to unravel this. And, I'm just one tiny piece of that jigsaw puzzle. And I see myself as starting this role, but I see someone else coming in and taking over at some point. It's for me to start things off and someone else to carry the baton. That's how I see things.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, kind of this is where your big following, you have a huge platform, really. We were talking about kind of over 1 million followers or whatever on Instagram. Really, you are kind of a fantastic person to be championing mental health. And obviously you do have your own kind of personal experiences with it as well. And I think that again makes you that kind of perfect person to be really pushing this, because people will relate to you, and you may be more relatable than somebody who is currently already working in government. So I think that's really fantastic.
Thank you so much.
So we've obviously spoken a little bit about kind of mental health then. I think a big thing that causes stress for young people is thinking about what they're going to do in the future. And I know for me personally, this did cause me considerable stress when I was going through kind of those key decision years, particularly GCSE, thinking about what you're going to go on and do after that. What would your best advice be for those students who maybe don't know what they want to do yet, or maybe have an idea but they're unsure of kind of how to get there?
I think a lot of people can relate to this, and actually, it might mean that I was kind of fortunate that I kind of had a clear idea of what I wanted to do. But actually, even when you choose to do medicine, you could be a skin doctor, you could be a psychiatrist, you could be a trauma doctor, there's honestly as many career options within medicine as outside medicine, it feels anyway. I know obviously there's more, but there's a lot of things. So you're actually deciding what way you want to go. It can be difficult. And actually I talk about this in my book, in Live Well. Every day I talk about the idea that purpose and passion is so important in your life. So working out, what your passions are. So for me, it was, I enjoyed science. I like learning about anatomy, the human body. I enjoyed people. I like adrenaline a bit as well. I love the cars and things. I like the idea of adrenaline and fast-paced life. And when I sat down and thought about it, I was like, well, if I combine all the things that I like doing, what jobs actually would give me those? And then I worked out, well, Formula One driver would be one, but that's never going to happen. I'm never going to be a Formula One driver, unfortunately. So what are my options in life? And so I looked through all the things that kind of fit with that. And I worked out, well, actually doing medicine or going to medical school, being a doctor actually would tick a lot of those boxes. So I was like, well, actually, that will give me those passions. If you bring them together and have a think about it, it actually gives me my purpose. And, now, in my career, I still look at what I do and think, well, actually, yeah, it does tick most of the boxes of what I enjoy in life. I like people, I love meeting people, I love the idea of, science, I love learning, I love all those things. And it's great. And I think anyone that's watching this, have a think about what makes you tick, and when they, the saying, can't remember quite how it goes, but if you look at what your passions are, then money and your career and occupation will follow. You do have to think a little bit. You can't obviously, there's some career routes maybe aren't give you as many occupations at the end as others, and it's always a balance, I guess. And like, if I'd have chased being a Formula One driver, then I wouldn't be good enough. But you've got to have a think about what's realistic, and I think that's important. But also follow your dreams. If you are really passionate about something, and you really like that area, then follow that, and just look at how you can turn it into a career, or what career it suits most. And I'm a big fan of lists. I talk about this in the book as well, the idea of writing a list of all your passions, and then drawing diagrams, draw big circles, what jobs, what careers actually link all these things together. Once you've got a list of a few careers, so you've shortlisted 2 or 3 degrees or colleges or whatever, courses, then write pros and cons. What are the pros and cons of that decision? And then slowly you'll work down to a situation where you've got your yes or no, like, this is what I'm going to do. And nothing's perfect in life. Another thing I would say is that your passions might change. You might be in your 30s and think, actually, I might decide, well, actually, do you know what, I this fast-paced lifestyle, in A&E doesn't suit me anymore. I actually want to go and, I just want to write my books, or I might want to do that. And that's absolutely fine. Most people now in the modern day don't follow one career for the rest of their life. It's actually unusual that people would remain in the same career. And there's nothing wrong with that. Life is about evolving, about learning, about following a journey. It's not about the end goal. Life is, it's a cliche thing, but I believe it's very true. Life is all about that journey. It's not about reaching that end goal.
Definitely. I think that's so important. And obviously within my role, I speak to students a lot about kind of their options and things like that. And I'm such a big advocate for doing things you enjoy, because I think
Absolutely.
generally, if you enjoy something, you'll do better in it, is usually how it goes.
Yeah.
A genuine interest, then you're more likely to kind of excel in those subjects, and things like that. So I'm definitely a big fan of doing things that you kind of actually enjoy. And also, like you said, it's unlikely that you're going to be doing the same job kind of for the rest of your life, and that is perfectly fine. And the decisions you make now ultimately are not decisions that are going to completely kind of close off any options for you. There's always things you can do to kind of get into the career that you're interested in.
For sure.
Yeah, so I completely agree. And like you mentioned there, obviously you've got your book, I know you've got your podcast, and you've got Prescribed as well, which we spoke about before. How has it been kind of managing those different things? And I suppose you'll have had to have developed new skills, kind of being an entrepreneur and things like that. How has that been?
I think I love life because every day you learn something new. You really do, and that's why I enjoy in life. And I had to learn so much in the last few years, like you say. Starting in the bath bomb, I sat in the bath one day and thought, I love this. I really enjoy bath bombs. Why don't I make a company out of it? I'd love to make a company. It's got it's vegan. It thinks about the environment a bit, with cruelty free. It's like a really nice self-care brand that's wholesome and something exciting. And I got really excited about that idea and thought, well, why not? Let's do it. And I've reached out to a company that helped develop these kind of things, and I've really enjoyed learning the process. And I've had to learn to juggle. I've had to learn to manage my time and work with different teams. But you find a way, and you find a way to do it. I'm very fortunate. I've got a brilliant team that I work with, management team that help, my work stuff as in A&E's there, but managing stuff I do with brands or making this product, etc. But as I say, it's exciting. You learn new things, and some days are quite stressful, as you'd imagine. But yeah, I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it.
Fantastic. Like you said, it's kind of learning new skills and things like that. You're always going to be developing, always learning. There's always something new to learn. I think it's really exciting though that you've been able to kind of turn your kind of passions and things into a business. I feel like we've seen a lot of that over lockdown. I've seen a lot of my friends kind of turning their kind of hobbies into ways to make money, which has been great. And I feel like a lot of people have been doing that kind of throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, it's a business is exciting, and you shouldn't be afraid to do something new. I think sometimes, and I say this carefully, it's about taking measured risks. Life is a constant risk. Everything you do in life has a risk. It's taking measured risk, but it's not about. Don't let fears and worries of what if prevent you from doing something. If you've got an idea in mind, maybe business or otherwise, might be a career, whatever it is. That's why I say write the pros, write the cons, write the reasons why, the reasons why not, write the things that are risks and write the things that are more or less likely guaranteed, and you'll find that you'll come to a balanced decision. But don't let what if it doesn't work stop you doing things. The platform stuff could fail, but it's something I wanted to try and give it a go. And as long as it doesn't put you into massive risk and and all that, and you build things slowly, you work hard, you'll often find that you'll make things work. But lots of people, I failed many times in my life. When I applied to medical school the first time round, I got a place at Liverpool Med School. I was supposed to go with my best mate there. We were so looking forward. I missed out by 2 marks in my chemistry A level. My actual coursework was dropped. Even the exam I did well. I got my A's apart from one actual section, and I dropped down to a B, and the med school wouldn't take me. So I had to reapply, redo the coursework, go through all the interviews again, go through the stress of not knowing if I'd have a place. And then I got my place, so I had to fail, learn from that failure, pick myself up and carry on. In life, you will have knockbacks. I'd say that to anyone. you will never have a life that's free of knockbacks and things that go wrong, but learning to deal with those, picking yourself up and going again is what matters. You learn far more from your failures than you do your successes. I always think that. Along the way, I've learned from my failures. I've had a lot of them, and you learn.
Absolutely. And I always kind of joke about this as well, but I always think your failures and things like that, they make perfect answers for an interview question. If you ever have a job interview, your failures, they make fantastic
gold dust.
Oh,
gold
brilliant.
dust.
Absolutely. So there's always a positive, even when something maybe doesn't go to plan.
Absolutely.
That is brilliant. And kind of thank you for answering my questions. That kind of wraps up the Q&A element of
Perfect.
this. But we do have some very kind of lucky students. Obviously, this is kind of who this event is for our students. For sure. And we did kind of put out a bit of a competition to kind of see if we can get some good questions for you. And I know that our students are dying to kind of come on and have a chat with you. As I mentioned then, we now are joined by our fantastic set of students. So these students were lucky enough to win the competition we put out on social. So they've asked some fantastic questions. They're now going to have the opportunity to actually ask Alex. So if we start with Jake then. So Jake, I know you have a really interesting question. If you could just kind of introduce yourself and then ask away.
Hi, I'm Jake. I'm a final phase deck officer trainee. My question to Alex is, as a young person who works at sea, which is obviously quite an isolated career, what any tips would be to benefit young people's mental health in that sort of situation?
Hi, Jake. Thanks so much for your question. I think it's a really, really good point you raised. I mean, I think regardless of whether you're going, whether to a naval career, whether you're going abroad, whether you're going to university or a new area, I think going into a situation where you might feel or potentially feel isolated can really impact on your mental health. I think almost regardless of your age, but particularly when you're young. I mean, I went to medical school in Plymouth for the first year or so, and I'm from Wales. So it was miles away from family, from friends. I didn't know anyone there at all. And I actually had to really make sure I was looking after my mental health when I went there so that I didn't, begin to feel too lonely or affected by it all. And, some of the tips I would say is, particularly when it comes to loneliness, is just make sure that you're keeping in touch with everyone at home. I actually remember at the time I was calling my friends back at home, messaging them every day to keep in touch, speak with my family. Arranging things. Now we've got all these Zoom calls and things, making sure you're getting calls in with family at home. I think it's quite helpful as well to, if you go in somewhere, take some photos of like family with you or friends. Like I've even now got pictures of mates and family and stuff in the flat, and it just helps me to feel like they're with you and stuff. I also think focusing on yourself while you're away as well. So making sure you get your exercise, you're sleeping well, you keep your diet well, you've got hobbies and things you're interested in. So whether it's a sport or whatever it is you like, but making sure that you're keeping active, because sometimes you spend too much time with your own thoughts that can make things worse. And also don't feel embarrassed by it. I think most people going away in that situation would feel the same. So speaking to other young people, other people around you and saying, look, I feel a certain way. How are you doing? And you'll find a lot of the time people say, actually, yeah, I feel the same. So there's a real help in that as well. So getting through it together.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question, my friend.
Yeah,
thank you.
That was
good
great.
luck.
I think that was a really good question. I remember when we saw that one come through and we all kind of looked at that.
It's a brilliant question.
Really, really good question.
Great question. A lot of us feel that, especially during the pandemic at the moment, a lot of us feel that way. And, I've been isolated here a lot in London, and it's weird. You can be in a city with so many people, but still be quite isolated. So yeah, it's a really, really important thing. I think, there's a recent study, a survey by the Office of National Statistics, and found that young people were pretty lonely actually a lot of the time. So, let's all take an effort, take time to make sure we're interacting with people, reaching out, people who haven't heard from a friend for a while, reach out and see how they're doing.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
That was brilliant, Jake. Thank you. So we are now going to move on to Isabel. Fantastic. Ask away.
Hi, I'm Isabel. I'm a deck crew cadet here in South Shields. My question is, out of the entire experience of coronavirus, what would be your one piece of advice for younger people to take away into their future?
Thank you, Isabel, so much. And I think the last year for everyone has been such a shock. I think to the system, particularly when it comes to mental health. And I think one of the things that I really hope we've all learned is that how important looking after our mental health actually is, and how important it is that we break down stigmas so that people can reach out and speak to each other and help each other. And I think actually, for my role and the work that I'm doing, what I really want to do is work with young people and try and make progress, I guess, in the sense of allowing us to all feel more comfortable about talking about mental health well-being, and allowing people to reach out when they feel that they need support. I think it would be brilliant. I think if all of us, young people, but everyone, I think taking forward from this pandemic, that we all really make sure we don't forget how important self-care is, how important mental well-being is. Some of the things I've talked about exercise and things from the previous questions, how important those are, but also that we all carry on the fight for mental health as well, and breaking down the stigma, making sure that we're all prioritizing our well-being as we move forward into the years that come. So yeah, it's going to take time. Like I said earlier on, Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't change things and change and destigmatize mental health overnight, but together we'll do it, I think. And I think there's a lot of passion now from young people, particularly to make a change and make a long-lasting change. So yeah, thank you for your question. Thanks, Isabel.
That was fantastic, Isabel. Thank you. So we're just going to move on now to Ash.
Hi, my name's Ash, and I was wondering what made you get into being a doctor. What inspired you to do it?
Oh gosh, thanks for your question. I actually, like I was saying a little bit earlier, I think I really enjoyed science at school. I loved learning. I loved anatomy and all that kind of stuff, physiology, and the idea of science just really it was something I was really interested in. But I also was someone that liked adrenaline. I like fast pace. I just like a bit of, not drama, but a bit of thrill in life. And I really thought, well, actually, it's a good way of combining that together with enjoying working as a team and working with people in a way that my career actually reflected my passions or things that I enjoyed. And medicine, med school, being a doctor, there's different careers for everyone, but particularly working in A&E, you can have that fast paced. You're working in a team. There's a lot of science involved. It's definitely a lot of adrenaline. So yeah, it really reflected my interests, I guess.
Thank you for answering that. Cool.
Thank you, Ash. Thank you.
That was brilliant. So we will move on to Caroline now. So if you could just unmute yourself.
Hi. Am I on?
Yeah.
Hiya. Hi, Alex. I'm on the excess course for health, and I've just been accepted into Northumbria University to do mental health. So this is quite exciting for us. But my question is, what are some things we can do every day to improve our mental well-being?
Well, first of all, congratulations, and I take my hat to anyone that goes into work in mental health. And I think it's a very exciting career, and it's a space. I'm excited, about the prospect of mental well-being and health being, so important to everyone in this country, and the fact that you're able to go into a space that you can really help people, I think is incredible. And I know you'll have a really amazing career.
Thank you.
So some of the things I think for self-care, I think looking after your well-being, it should be intuitive, it should feel natural, it should feel right, and it's different for everyone, but I think the fundamentals are quite similar. So when we talk about sleep, it's making sure that we get up at a similar time in the morning, go to bed to a similar time, that we're actually allowing a space in which we can actually have good quality sleep. That sounds like basics, but what's the room temperature like? Are we unwinding before bed? Are we on TikTok until late at night? Is the room dark enough for us to sleep? Are we having too much caffeine later in the day that's stopping us sleep? Other elements of self. There you go. It's caffeine, especially at university. You end up drinking loads of caffeine, and then it's a kind of a counterproductive cycle. So just thinking about things like sleep, thinking about, am I exercising a little bit? Not over exercising. There's obviously a balance. So you want to get, the NHS has guidance on how much exercise you should get, but I'd say I get out for a good walk every day, a couple of times a week. I do a bit of a workout. I make sure I do things for self-care as well, like in terms of unwinding. So if I got a stressful day in A&E or something, I chuck a bath bomb in, have a bath, have to put a podcast on, And I make sure I communicate with people as well, and I talk to people about what I'm going through. We spoke about loneliness a little bit earlier, and I think one of the things I worry about with modern life and like Instagram and everything is we're becoming more detached from people. We need to make sure, particularly coming out of the pandemic, we're having those face-to-face relationships and contacts with your friends. You're picking up the phone like the old days and having a chat on the phone, and all those aspects come together to helping you feel good. And I would say to anyone, if you're thinking, oh, I'm not feeling great, first of all, talk to someone about how you're feeling, because a lot of people are feeling that way at the moment. But also have a look about what you're doing in your life. Are you looking after yourself? Are you doing the things that actually will make you feel better? Or are you just working really hard all the time, not having any downtime, and just not giving yourself that space to feel better, and to actually look after yourself. So yeah, those are some of the things I would say. But self-care is an investment in yourself. That's the way I see it. And if you want to be good at your job, if you want to be successful, at your work, if you want to be, good in your relationships and your friendships, that's all got to come from a place of looking after yourself. And in the work you can be doing in mental health, to be able to look after, patients and people, you got to look after you as well. So make sure you do take time for yourself, and that's for everyone, and regardless of what career you're going into. But yeah, thank you for your question.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was a really good one as well. And thinking about what we can do, the little steps we can take each day. And that was brilliant. And then finally, Ian, if you would like to ask your question.
Hi, I'm Ian. I'm also known as Photography Ian Williams on Instagram, which you have seen, Alex. My question is, how have doctors coped with the COVID pandemic with different rules and regulations?
Well, thank you. And I think I think what's been pretty hard, throughout the whole pandemic is things keep changing and evolving. I think it's for everyone, the rules change, and, depending on how many cases there are, how many people are admitted to the hospital, the situation changes and the rules have to reflect that. So, and also, of course, we've had lockdowns, we've had restrictions, and now we're obviously having easing restrictions. And I think from a medical perspective, a doctor's perspective, we're keen to make sure that we lift the restrictions gently and in a safe way, so that we actually don't see this rising really, really quickly. But it seems that things are going well. The numbers aren't shooting up in this country. Obviously, if you look at other countries in Europe, they're having a different experience, but things are going well at the moment. And like I said, I touched upon this point as well. I think generally for everyone, I would say, just because you're seeing restrictions lifting, they're not milestones you have to hit. Like just because we can now go to the shops doesn't mean you have to rush to the busy environments like Primark or whatever. You do what you feel comfortable with. I personally am not going to rush to busy environments. I don't want to be in those spaces because that would make me feel a bit anxious. So do things as you're ready and don't feel pressurized to do that, to kind of rush or whatever. But thank you, Ian, and thank you for your good question.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. So a massive thank you to all of our students there. I think those were some great questions with some great answers as well. And I hope you've all kind of taken something away from that. But that was fantastic having you all on. So what I'm going to do now is ask you all to head off the meeting, and I will just wrap things up with Alex. But thank you all so much.
Thank you, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Yeah,
thank you
very much. And thank you for brilliant questions. Thanks for your time. Good luck, everyone.
So a huge thank you. It's been so great having you on. And I know, as you've just mentioned, you are such a busy person, and I really, really do appreciate you kind of giving up some time to speak with us today and our students. I know they'll have really appreciated that. I think it's been fantastic. I think we've had a really good chat, and you've answered some kind of big questions that not only I have, but the students have as well. So it's been great.
Well, thank you very much, and good luck to everyone. Thank you for everyone's time, watching this, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event as well.
Brilliant. So for everyone that is watching, you now can enjoy the rest of the event. So we've got the main halls with the different kind of curriculum areas, and we do have some other sessions later on in the day as well. But yeah, thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Jess. That was brilliant.